Perfect. Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad you could join us today. Whether you're dialing in from your home office, a client site, or somewhere in between, we really appreciate you taking the time to be here. We've got a great session lined up that we're co hosting with our friends at Avalara, and we're excited to dive into how our solutions can help streamline and modernize your business operations. Let me kick things off with a quick introduction. My name is Nicholas Cabrera, and I'm with Crestwood Associates as a Dynamics focused customer success manager. We're a Microsoft Dynamics partner and cloud solutions provider, working with clients across industries to help them make the most of their technology investments. Before we jump in, just a little housekeeping. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sharing the recording with you afterward. So no need to take some frantic notes. Also, feel free to drop questions in the Q&A box as we go. We'll leave some time at the end for a live Q&A session as well. At Crestwood Associates, our culture is built around three core values: working smart, having fun, and delivering results. Each of these is backed up by values that guide how we operate, collaborate, and grow, both as a team and with our clients. Work smart means we lead with integrity, being transparent, and always doing the right thing. We hold ourselves accountable through inspired self responsibility, and we strive to make intentional, informed decisions every step of the way. Having fun speaks to the energy we try to bring to our work. We're curious by nature, always learning and exploring, and we collaborate to make work lighter and more enjoyable for everybody involved. And finally, delivering results. Because at the end of the day, we're here to make an impact. We aim for excellence, not just meeting expectations, but surpassing them with precision and purpose. These values aren't just words, they show up in how we serve clients, build solutions, and partner with others like Avalara. Now, let's talk tech. Our solutions are built around Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, an ERP platform that we've helped many clients adopt and scale. But we don't stop there. We also integrate Azure services, enable automation and AI with Microsoft Copilot, and layer in industry specific tools to meet our clients' unique needs. We see tech not just as a solution, but as a strategy. And when it's aligned right, it can completely change how you operate and grow. And with that, I'm so excited to hand things over to our partner Avalara, who brings deep expertise into tax automation and compliance, a really very critical part of the digital transformation journey. John, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick, and good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Really appreciate you being here. Excited to talk to you today about accounts payable and use tax compliance. A couple of quick just housekeeping items. We're going to talk today. This is more just a discussion. I hope you find the information that we share informative and helpful, but this is really not deemed for legal or tax advice. This is more just an open conversation about use tax compliance. I'm joined today with my counterpart, Miles. Miles and I are going to talk about use tax together, but it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm John Harrington. I'm based in the Jacksonville, Florida area, and I've been with Avalara for about 2 years, but I have over 30 years experience in the sales and use tax arena. Really like talking about sales tax and use tax, and learn something new every day. And Miles, are you there? I can't quite see on the screen, but if you'd like to say a quick word, that'd be great. And he might not. Let me see if he's changed. Yeah, Miles, it looks like you might be on mute. We'll give him a second. Miles, are you able to go off mute or no? All right. Well, hopefully he'll come back here. I might ask Chloe to help with that if she can, but I'll continue. Miles is our use tax expert, and he really brings a lot of just common knowledge to the topic. He's been working in CPA environment as well as corporate America for a number of years, over 10 years, and he's truly a subject matter expert as it relates to use tax. So and hopefully we'll get his mic working here in a moment. Okay, so let me continue. Sorry about that. So our agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about the procurement-to-pay compliance process and how use tax impacts your business. We're going to talk about validating vendor bills before they become a liability. Talk a little bit about 1099 forms from your vendors and for your vendors, and also talk about managing vendor exemptions with ease. And then towards the end, we're going to open it up for some Q&A. If you guys have some questions, we'd love to address those. So just a couple of quick things to share about tax compliance. For reasons, tax compliance continues to be a challenge for really all businesses. Commerce has never been more vibrant. The internet has really made doing business much easier, much faster. So commerce right now is very, very vibrant. Governments are reacting with very aggressive policies, and specifically to sales and use tax charges. Many state governments are really honing in on sales and use tax a lot more aggressively today than they have in years past. And just like everything in the world, tax compliance is becoming almost fully digital. That adds another level of complexity to keeping your business compliant. And then, just the topic, managing compliance, it really does require a lot of resources and a lot of expertise. So I'm going to just pause for a second. I'm going to check in to see if Miles was able to go off mute. Or Miles, are you able to still having difficulty? Okay, I think I'm just going to take this all the way here. He can still convey towards the end. If we have questions at the end, we can communicate with him via chat. So a little bit about Avalara. We really do remove the burden of tax compliance with automation. We started back in 2004. We were very specific to the United States. We have grown globally. We have offices really scattered throughout the world. And not only have we grown in terms of where our offices are located, but we actually do now provide a true automation for global transactions. If your company has a global footprint, we can help automate that for you. Let's talk a little bit about the procurement-to-pay compliance process. And, use tax compliance, it's really a must-have requirement, really, for every company. And these are some common questions when you're dealing with your purchases. Are your suppliers charging you the correct sales tax? Are you capturing any tax overpayments? Are you still accruing self-accruing when suppliers don't charge tax? And do tax issues slow the payment process? If there's a problem with tax on an invoice, is that going to slow down the payment process? Consumer use tax, it's very challenging. The self-assessment is typically a manual process. We're going to talk about why it should be more automated, or it's becoming more automated, but self-assessment is 9 times out of 10 a manual process, and it really requires a lot of resources and a lot of specialized skills knowing what's taxable and what's not. Use tax rules and rates are complex, and they're constantly changing. And the integration and automation can be pretty difficult because you're dealing with a lot of different sources, and you're dealing with data management, which is typically complex. And the last thing I'd like to share about use tax challenges is it's becoming more and more of an audit in terms of focus. When you do have a sales and use tax audit, many auditors now are looking at your use tax transactions over and above your sales tax transactions, because they are just finding that many companies are not properly accruing and paying use tax. Another area within the use tax function is just looking and validating your vendor bills. I have an example here that I'd like to share with the group. And let's take, for example, a business headquarters is going to purchase a $10,000 piece of computer equipment, which their intent would be to provide or drop ship to the branch office. If you don't have a good use tax process in order, without any kind of automated or checkpoint, typically what happens is that purchase will be taxed at the headquarter location. In this example, the headquarters would have a tax rate of, say, 10.25%. So you would have paid $1,025 in use tax. But if you had a process in place where either it was fully automated or you were at least checking to see where the equipment was shipped to and where it was used, you could, in fact, use the tax rate of the branch office location. In this example, we use 7.5% for the branch office, which would have amounted to $750 due in use tax. So you can see you would have saved the company $275 in tax. So that's just a very high level example of, if you take a closer look at the use tax that you are paying on your purchases, ultimately you could save your company money. Now, I want to reiterate the value of automating your use tax process. And really, automation is truly inevitable. It's going to happen, and here's why. I'm not going to read each and every item, but I'm just going to highlight, many folks are stretched thin. Your teams are doing a lot. They're doing a lot more than just sales and use tax. So just by nature of your workload, you need to automate this function for your company. If you continue to do use tax on a manual basis, it's going to just really be time consuming. And the more manual you are doing use tax, the more prone to error your process will be. The transactions in general, incorrect tax calculations and improper addresses just really kind of derail the process and slow down the process. So if you automate the function, it's going to make the whole process faster and more accurate. Basic applications right now are just not providing businesses with what they need. Every business is unique, and they really need a true customizable, flexible approach to use tax. So if you automate that, you can customize your use tax process. And then lastly, many companies have a lot of growth, and growth is now part of really most strategies. And to allow you to hit those growth goals, you're going to have to do a streamlined approach so that you can focus on helping your business grow versus focusing on use tax. Just a quick statistic to share: 7 out of 10 companies have invested in technology to really improve their whole tax compliance function. So ultimately, automation is really the way to go with use tax. As you look at a use tax automation process for your accounts payable, here are some key areas that you want to focus on. Your vendor management, cost centers, allocation rules, and the management of automated accruals. And all of these elements can be customized and automated so that you are accruing proper use tax. I'm going to pause for just a moment. I just want to check in to see. I don't think we've had success with Miles. It looks like he still is having difficulty, so I apologize. I'm going to just continue going through the PowerPoint here. So another key element in use tax is managing vendor exemptions. Vendor exemption management, this is really important because, again, we've talked a lot about automating the function, but when you do have a process in place for collecting, validating, and managing your exempt certificates, you are adding control to your procurement process. It really does minimize the time and the need for tax expertise because the function is automated. It does allow for web-based automation, and you can centralize the function. So someone in your your headquarters location versus your branch is actually helping you collect and verify vendor documentation, and give to vendors, I should say. And then it also just creates, you can pre-populate the process. So if you do have to give a certificate out, it can be pre-populated automatically, which saves time. And again, it makes it much more accurate, much more efficient. And ultimately, it improves your vendor supplier relationship. It creates more efficiency between the two sides. And I'm going to move forward. We talk a little bit about 1099 and W-9 reporting from your vendors and for your vendors. We've had a couple of different webinars strictly on just the IRS forms and the 1099s, but I wanted to include this in today's discussion because, it does play a critical part in working with your vendors. So, you're going to collect a 1099 and a W-9 really from pretty much every vendor or contractor that you're working with, and this is a critical part to remain compliant. There's a lot of forms that have to be filed. There's a lot of details that have to be accurate on the form. And again, if you have an automated approach with the way that you collect and populate your W-9s and your 1099s, it ultimately is going to save time, and it's going to allow your company to be more compliant and more accurate. Here's a couple of pain points that are associated with W-9 and 1099 forms. Lack of information. A lot of times right now, if you're collecting W-9s in the old-fashioned print format, it just is prone to error, like we've said on a couple of the other slides. You're not able to track expirations. A lot of times you might have kind of like a fire drill where you're rushing to send and collect W-9s. If you have an automated process, you're able to truly operate just much more efficiently and effectively. And most importantly, the data that you have is going to be accurate. Like, for example, if you had an automated W-9 collection process in play, when you are collecting the W-9 in a digital environment, all the key elements on that W-9 will be checked and verified. Is the tax ID a correct tax ID? Company name, does the company name tie to the tax ID? Is the address correct? All that stuff is verified up front, so you're not dealing with any inaccurate data. I'm going to pause. I hope we can open this up for some Q&A, and I do apologize to the group because we've had some technical difficulties. Miles would have done a much better job on some of those slides than I did. But Chloe, are we able to open up the mic for questions, or is that only through the chat feature?
Everyone can ask questions in the chat, and then if you and Nick have any questions, you can open up and have open dialogue. But if everyone has any questions, we can go ahead and take those in the chat. If not, we can just go over any additional slides that Nick has. And then I do apologize, Miles, for you not being able to unmute yourself. But yeah, we can go ahead and continue.
Okay. So any questions from the audience? No questions. Okay. We can give you guys a couple of minutes back, I think. Now, So I think I was going to try to figure out if I could get Miles off mute because I know he might have a couple of things to add to the group. Let's see if we can figure out how to do that. Yeah, Miles, I apologize about that, but so I will go ahead and share my name on the screen here again. And I do encourage you guys, if you have some technical questions about use tax compliance and your purchases and what you should be doing as a company on your purchases from a use tax perspective, please reach out. I know Miles is on mute, but he is truly a subject matter expert on the topic. And he's glad to answer questions and talk to you about any kind of compliance that you might have. So, I mean, if there are no questions, I think we can give you about 9 minutes back to your day. But Chloe, Nick, I don't know if you guys have any other comments you'd like to share.
No, that was everything that I had on my end. It was such a pleasure, John. I love working with Avalara. There's a lot of work that we do mutually for our clients across all ERP systems, and we'll make sure that we have everything buttoned up for our next presentation. Again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.